Ready to take things to a new level? This is Level On Up with Sadia.
Welcome, Jess. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing just dandy. Congratulations on the new single, Life for Me. Can you tell us a little bit about it? It's obviously a fun track.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, it was a fun track to write as well. It was the first time that myself and my co-writers, so Emily Reed, Matt Morrissey, and Jess Kane, it was the first time that the four of us had ever written together, despite Emily and I knowing each other for a few years already. So it was really fun. And sometimes the first write can be a little iffy. You got to take some time to get to know each other, but it was like we had known each other forever, and the chemistry was really good, and we continue to write songs to this day, literally. So yeah, the song is super fun, and it's just all about kind of my experience growing up in a small town in Saskatchewan.
My biggest concern is, how did you separate the Jesses? Were you Jess M or?
Yeah, we never really ran into that issue, but in our group chat, I'm Jess M. Yeah, there's always Jess M and Jess C.
And the music video was how long did that take to record and produce?
Um, we did it in one day. Yeah. We actually did that one just outside of Nashville. I would have loved to have done it in my hometown, but I actually had shot during the pandemic a video in my hometown for another song called Map Dot, and I was concerned that they would end up looking the same. So I thought, well, you know what? Nashville is kind of my second home, though I don't live here. It feels like another home to me, so it was kind of appropriate to do it that way too.
I was going to say, what is home to you these days? Because between obviously Canada, Australia, the US, you do travel a bit.
I definitely travel a bit, yeah, which is kind of why I've chosen to keep my home the same. So my husband and I live just outside of a small town in Saskatchewan called Rocanville. We live on about 20 acres of land, and it's just gorgeous. But I live like 30 minutes from where my mom and my brother live. So it's super nice to be able to be truly home when I go home instead of having to travel to get home as well. So yeah, I still live pretty close to where I grew up.
Speaking of Australia, you've travelled over here a few times in the last 12 months.
So we came down for South by Southwest as well as Groundwater. We were supposed to come back for a few shows surrounding Tamworth in January, and unfortunately, a few things fell through and came up, and we weren't able to make it. So we owe you another trip. We'll just say that.
Well, we would love that because you have worked with some of our Australian artists too, including Travis Collins.
Yeah, Aussies are so great. I feel like I have so many Australian friends over there, like Sarah Berkey and Melanie Dyer and Casey Barnes and obviously Trav. So, but yeah, Travis and I put out a song a few years back called Leave Each Other Alone. And I had written that song and always kind of heard it as a duet, but no voices were really kind of jumping out at me until we went to see and heard Travis playing, and I was like, oh my gosh, how do I get this guy on my song? And it was surprisingly easy. He was very very happy to sing it, and he took it to an entirely new level.
So how would you compare, not that we want to pit anybody against anybody, but the Australian country music scene versus the Canadian?
I mean, I guess they're both unique in their own ways. I don't know if I'm qualified to comment on both well enough yet, because I haven't spent as much time down under as I would like to. But um, I guess they're similar in some ways that I can't quite put my finger on. But maybe that's just that country music is kind of country music, and we're all just doing things individually as artists that make each of us unique. So that's not a very good answer to your question, and I apologize, but
No
it's
need
the
to,
most
but
accurate I can.
particularly in Canada, you're making waves. You've achieved some great accolades. And how does it feel to be put in the same sentence or category as Shania Twain?
Yeah, I get this question so frequently, and it's just so wild to have anybody make that comparison, really. I grew up listening to Shania. She's still my favorite artist to this day, and I just love what she did and continues to do with and for country music. I love that she never really let anything stand in the way of including pop elements to her country. I feel like that's something I was heavily influenced by. And I think that she really carved a path for country artists, period, not just women, not just Canadians. I think that what she did for the genre is really coming through today in the way that we have kind of subgenres within country. So the fact that anyone sees any likeness between her and I is such a huge compliment.
And to be, what is it, the first female artist since Shania Twain to receive platinum single status.
That one's wild.
It would still be surreal because you've been in the country music industry for a good decade now. And yeah, just drawing back to Shania, and obviously she's helped pave the way to do those crossover genres, making it a bit easier as a songwriter as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely something that makes it a lot more fun in the writing room. And it's something that sometimes can be a little challenging to dive into and maybe to be accepted. But that was what was kind of fun with life for me specifically, is that we just kind of thought, well, what if we put some fun like 808s and trap beats behind this, because that's what I like. And let's see if other people like it too. And yeah, it's, I guess, thanks to Shania, we can do that now.
And this single itself, it's a good preview on what's to come, I'm assuming too.
I think so. Yeah. We've got 3 other songs ready to go at the moment, and I'm currently in Nashville writing for a few weeks. So we'll see what else comes of it.
So the writing process with songs, naturally you like to surround yourself with like-minded individuals, but I see that you're also happy to experiment and work with new people constantly as well.
Yeah, I mean, you always will have your favorites and people that you continue to go back to when you have good success and good chemistry and good luck with them. But yeah, I love adding new writers to my repertoire. And sometimes you write with someone and you think, that's not quite a fit. And other times you write with them and you're like, well, how have I not been writing with you for the last decade? So I think it's healthy and good to kind of incorporate new thoughts and perspectives and ideas.
Speaking of thoughts and perspectives and ideas, where's the strangest place you've been inspired or written a lyric?
Well, strangest place I've been inspired, I will say, was on Twitter quite a few years ago. I don't remember what the account was called. I think it was called like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend or something like that. And though I always say I write music that is true to me and my story and authentic, this is like the exception to that rule. This is the one time I wrote a song that had nothing to do with me or my experience. It was just a fun song to write. But the Twitter account was like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and it was just a bunch of like totally unhinged things that this girl had done. I think it was a parody account. I don't think it was true, but that's probably the craziest place I've drawn inspiration from.
What about the most random place you've heard one of your songs played?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't know. I mean, it's crazy anytime it pops up. I am well aware that my songs are on the radio in multiple countries, but it is always crazy when I hear them in the UK or Australia or somewhere, outside. It's always just, I mean, even if I hear it in Canada, you have to be at the right place at the right time. And it's kind of crazy anytime I hear it. It's still, after all these years, still not quite used to it.
Making mention back to Australia, I noticed that you're trying out coffees, and I just wanted to know how you rate the Canadian coffee to the Australian coffee.
Ooh, it's really not as good. I'm sorry, Canada, but Australia's got us beat there. Don't get me wrong, there are some really great coffee shops in Canada. But I don't think we compare. It's just so everywhere you get coffee in Australia is good. I've not had a bad coffee. I've had coffees that are exceptional and better than good. But yeah, we're not quite there yet.
So next time you come to Australia, what's your order so I know in advance?
I love a flat white. And if I can get a little crazy, sometimes I'll add like vanilla or some kind of syrup. Where's that coffee from? Is that a good one?
The local cafe around the corner.
And it's good?
It's great. Best service too. Uh,
See? You can't go wrong.
so, not to put the hurry on you, you did mention that you've got another 3 songs. When can we expect the next release?
Not 100% sure yet. We kind of want to see where Life for Me lands and when it's life, no pun intended, kind of starts winding down. But I think we'll probably end up releasing them one by one for a little bit while I continue to finish whatever this project ends up being, whether it's a full album or an EP. We'll see.
Well, that would probably be one of the biggest questions, or one of the most things to decipher these days, because music itself, you would notice, has changed so much in the last decade. And it's really interesting to see whether the artists go towards the album version or just keep releasing singles. Do you take that into account?
Oh my God, it's like all I think about. I wish I could say, oh, it's an inspired decision and it's just, but it's kind of not. There's a lot of hoops that we have to jump through, to make sure that our music is put in the best light and gets the most attention. And right now it feels like the best way to do that is releasing singles. By the time you put together an album, if that album is filled with songs that nobody's ever heard, a lot of times they become overlooked by radio or streamers because they're not new, because they've already been on an album. So it's kind of a little bit of a strategic thing that we always have to kind of work around and try and plan out. So that's why I think you'll probably just hear one song at a time for probably the next year or so. But who knows? Maybe the game will change again and I'll be eating my words.
And I guess with the world of social media and streaming, in some ways that gives you a bit of a more instant engagement level with your fans and seeing how they're relating to your music.
Yeah, and it does allow me to release music quicker, though the music may not be immediately available to stream whenever they want. I can put a song that I wrote today on TikTok tonight if I want, whether it's the whole song or just a verse and a chorus, I can kind of tease that music. And that's been really cool and really fun to just see what people like, what is performing well on socials, and even just for myself to be like, I did something and I can talk about it. In this industry, there's so many times where we're working on big things and we just want to scream it from the rooftops, but we can't quite yet because there's a plan. Ugh. It's a little annoying. So to be able to write something and then release it immediately is pretty cool.
And as much as social media is a little bit more instant, I can only assume when you go out and tour, like you've toured with some great names, you've also done your own headline tours, it still doesn't quite prepare you for the range of or age groups of audiences that you attract, does it?
Yeah, a really cool thing that's been happening over the I'll say last year, I've really noticed it, is because I've been around for a while now, and it's been really cool to see, little kids and girls come up and say, "Oh, my mom raised me on Cheap Wine and Cigarettes," or my favorite song is, Kiss Me Quiet or something, because my mom listened to it, and now they're listening to the new stuff. And you can kind of see the slight generation gap where some of my older songs are being screamed at the top of their lungs by the parents, and then the kids are screaming Life for Me and Go Getter, and it's really cool. And I really don't take for granted that in a really fast-paced environment where we're always so focused on who's up and coming now and who's the next best thing, and we're always just wanting new and change. It's really cool to see that I've been able to make music that is lasting generations, and I will never take that for granted. I don't know how we did it or why it's translating, but I love this job and I love making music, and I'm so thankful that there are people out there that let me continue to do that.
While we're glad that you got to do the job you love, was there ever a backup plan?
Yeah, so this was never the plan. So no, yes and no. I loved music, I loved to sing and would do it every chance I got, but I didn't really ever even consider it as a career choice. So I was in university, I was studying criminal justice. That was the plan. I guess music is maybe the backup plan. And it just ended up taking a front row seat. It just got to the point where it was, there were so many opportunities that I couldn't turn down, and I never wanted to have any regrets. And it was kind of all I ended up having time for. So maybe music is the backup plan. I don't know.
So who introduced you to, the possibility of doing music?
I don't even know. It was never like it was presented to me. It
Yeah.
just doing it. I was just performing. And then all of a sudden, there was some opportunity that came up, and it was never like, you're gonna do this as a job now. It just didn't happen that way. I don't really know. It's always a little bit gray. It's never a clear path for anybody, I'm sure. But for me, I just kept singing and singing until I was like, I guess this is my job now. I guess this
So
is
will
what
it,
I'm time for, and this is how I make my living.
so will we see any of your criminal justice knowledge come into your songwriting down the track?
I doubt it. I didn't get very far in that.
Can't do a revised version of Goodbye Elle and how to get away with it?
I'm sure the laws are even different now than when I had studied school. So maybe, maybe the closest I'll get is, a cover to Goodbye Earl.
Now, by the sounds of things, you are living the life for you, but if we could tweak it a little bit more, what is your ideal day? Or
Well, my ideal day, there's one thing that we don't have, and we've already chatted a little bit about it, but there's one thing that my small town life is definitely missing, and that is a coffee shop. We don't have one at all.
I knew where
So
you were going there.
yeah, yeah. So my ideal day would be waking up and going to this fictional coffee shop in my hometown that doesn't exist yet. And just kind of a nice slow morning, and maybe let's say I had a show that night, and let's say that show was in my hometown with my band, and we just kind of hung out and had some drinks and stuff after. And I think that would be pretty close to my ideal day. Maybe a bonus would be having time for dinner together with everybody. And I'm a pretty simple girl. I love music, and I love coffee, and I love wine, and my dogs, and being at home. So that's kind of all my favorite things wrapped into one.
Well, that sounds like my ideal day too, minus I wouldn't be singing, you would be, because the best way for me to sing is solo, nobody can hear me. But music and coffee, I think, is a great combination.
How can it go wrong?
So before I let you go, when do we expect to see you in Australia again?
Well, I don't know right now. I will say we're always working on how to get back in the market, and when the best time is, especially trying to wedge that in between our own touring seasons here in Canada, and ideally during our winter. So I don't have anything concrete right now, but definitely keep checking my website, which is just jessmoskaluke.com, and promise you'll be the first to know as soon as we know.
And of course, you're very active on socials too, so don't forget to click on that follow or like button too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having a chat, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Yeah, thank you so much. My pleasure. Enjoy your coffee.
Will do.
Follow Level On Up podcast on Instagram. What's that smell? Smells good. It's coming from ellierose.com.au.